Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. At sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin.
Tears in Qatar, the shocking message that broke Eala and the fan who saved her career. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only place on the internet where we don't just watch the match. We live the drama, feel the heartbreak, and celebrate the glory with every single one of you. And today we have a story that is going to stop you dead in your tracks. If you think you already know what happened at the 2026 Qatar Open, I promise you don't. Not the full picture. Not the real story behind the story. What the cameras caught was just the surface of something so deep, so emotionally raw, and so genuinely extraordinary that the entire tennis world is still trying to process it. We are talking about tears on center court, a security breach that has official scrambling, a mystery child who sprinted past trained guards, and a whispered message that broke a champion wide open in the best possible way. This is the moment that may define not just Eala's 2026 season, but her entire legacy as the face of Philippine tennis. So do me a favor before we dive in. Smash that like button right now. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell because you are absolutely not going to want to miss a single word of what comes next. Let's set the scene properly, because context is everything. Doha, Qatar. The lights are blinding white and pitiless. The kind of stadium lighting that hides nothing, forgives nothing. The air outside the arena is thick with the particular humidity of the Gulf, the kind that clings to you and reminds you that you are a long, long way from home. Inside the court, the atmosphere is electric in that specific, high-stakes way that only a WTA 1000 event can manufacture. This is not just any tournament. A WTA 1000 is the second highest tier of competition on the women's tour, sitting just below the Grand Slams. The players who compete here are the absolute cream of the crop. The prize money is enormous. The ranking points are precious. And the pressure? The pressure is the kind that can crush a diamond. Right in the center of all of it, wearing the flag of the Philippines on her shoulders whether she likes it or not, stands Alexandra Eala. Now, to truly understand why the footage that has gone viral overnight is so devastating to watch, to truly feel the weight of what we witnessed, you need to understand the road that brought us to this exact moment on this exact court. Because the story of Doha 2026 didn't start in Doha. It started in January, when Eala launched herself into this season like a woman with something to prove to the entire world. The 2026 season was supposed to be the year the prophecy was fulfilled. Every tennis expert, every scout, every commentator who had been whispering Eala's name for 3 years was waiting for this to be the season she finally announced herself to the upper echelon. And early signs were almost impossibly good. She stormed through Abu Dhabi with a ferocity that genuinely shocked people who hadn't been following her closely. She dismantled opponents who had been on the professional tour for a decade, players with experience and guile, and the kind of tactical sophistication that young players are supposed to find overwhelming. She made them look like amateurs. The serves were landing like bombs. The ground strokes were precise and punishing. The footwork was quick and assured. She reached the quarterfinals and walked off the court with a career-high ranking of world number 40 burning like a beacon. Number 40. Let that sink in for a second. For the Philippines, a nation with a long and storied history of athletic excellence in boxing, basketball, and athletics, but not historically a powerhouse in the rarefied, expensive, globally competitive world of professional tennis. Number 40 in the world is a seismic achievement. She wasn't just a talented kid anymore. She was a genuine, certified, world-class professional tennis player. The hype train didn't just leave the station. It was a bullet train doing 300 kilometers an hour with no signs of slowing down. Brands were calling. Media requests were flooding in. The Philippine sports community, which breathes passion and lives for its heroes, had decided that Eala was their chosen one, and they wrapped every ounce of their collective hope and national pride around her shoulders like a cloak she never asked for but couldn't take off. And here is the thing about high-speed trains that nobody likes to talk about. When they derail, the crash is absolutely spectacular. Coming into Qatar, the warning signs were there for those paying close enough attention. The schedule she had been running was brutal by any professional standard. The travel alone would break most people. The constant movement between time zones, between continents, between surfaces, it takes a physical and psychological toll that fans watching from the comfort of their sofas rarely appreciate. Add to that the relentless media scrutiny that comes with being a rising star. The weight of representing not just yourself, but an entire nation that has emotionally invested in your success. And the quiet, grinding pressure of knowing that every match you play is being watched by millions of people who believe you are destined for greatness. That is not just pressure. That is a psychological siege. Against Czech rising star Tereza Valentova in the first round of the Qatar Open, the siege finally broke through the walls. This was not simply a bad day at the office. This was not a straightforward defeat. This was a war of attrition that collapsed into something almost painful to watch by the end. The opening set was genuinely magnificent tennis. Eala and Valentova were locked in a ferocious exchange of ground strokes that sounded like rifle shots echoing around the arena. Neither player was willing to give an inch. The rallies were long and punishing. Alex was fighting with everything she had, dragging the set into a tiebreak that could have gone either way. She lost at 7 points to 6, a wafer-thin margin, the slimmest possible defeat. But something in that tiebreak loss triggered a reaction that went far beyond tennis. Something cracked. The second set was devastating. 6-1. A 6-1 thrashing in a WTA 1000 first round by a player she was expected to handle. The stats tell the story in cold, clinical language that hides nothing. Her unforced error count in that second set was double her season average. Her first serve percentage fell below 50%, a catastrophic figure for a player of her caliber. Her movement out wide, usually one of her strengths, was slow and reluctant. Valentova, to her enormous credit, exploited every weakness mercilessly. She targeted the wide ball relentlessly, exposed Eala's inability to generate pace off the short ball, and was tactically near-perfect throughout. When the final ball was struck and the match was over, Alexandra Eala did not just walk to her bench. She collapsed onto it. That is the only word for it. She sat down like someone had pulled every wire holding her upright simultaneously, hunched in the corner, head bowed so low it was almost touching her knees, gripping her racket handle so tightly her knuckles must have been white. She looked, in that moment, like someone who had reached the absolute end of their rope and found nothing on the other side. From the front row, there was a blur of movement that nobody on the security team was prepared for. A child, estimated to be around 8 years old, small even for that age, with legs that looked like they were built specifically for maximum speed, broke through the perimeter in a gap that opened for approximately 2 seconds. The security personnel, who are trained to respond to threats, had a very human moment of hesitation. Because this was emphatically not a threat. This was a Filipino boy in a jersey that was at least 3 sizes too large for his small frame. A jersey with an image of Eala lifting a trophy printed across the front, running toward the bench with the absolute focus and determination of someone who has been planning this moment for a very long time. In his small hand, clutched tightly against his chest, was a piece of paper. Crumpled, slightly damp from the humidity or from being held too tightly, folded and refolded until the creases had turned white. The kind of paper that has been prepared and carried and worried over for days. Time, genuinely, appeared to stop in the arena. The umpire rose from the chair. The security personnel began to converge from multiple directions. Valentova, who had been at the net waiting to shake hands, froze completely. Every camera swung toward this tiny intruder. The crowd, which had just been in total silence, shifted into a different kind of silence entirely. The hell-breath silence of people watching something happen that they cannot quite believe is real. The boy did not slow down. He ran all the way to Alex, who still hadn't looked up from the bench, still lost in her own world of exhaustion and disappointment. And he reached out his small arms, bypassed every professional protocol, bypassed every social convention about not approaching athletes in their private moments of grief, and he hugged her. He threw his arms around Alexandra Eala with the uncomplicated, unstoppable love that only children are capable of, and he held on. Alex looked up, and in that moment of looking up, of seeing this small, determined, fiercely loyal little fan who had broken every rule to reach her, something shifted in her face. She had been holding herself together with the last thin threads of professional composure. The boy's arms around her snapped those threads cleanly in two. She burst into tears. Real tears. Not the polite, dignified, socially acceptable tears of a disappointed athlete. The deep, gasping, full-body tears of someone releasing a weight they have been carrying for a very long time. She wrapped her arms around the boy and pulled him close and held him with the kind of desperate gratitude of someone who has just been thrown a lifeline at the exact moment they needed it most. Before the security team reached them, before anyone interrupted, the boy leaned up and whispered something directly into her ear. The arena microphones didn't capture it. The lip-reading community on social media has been analyzing every available frame of footage since the video went viral, and the consensus is forming, though nothing is yet confirmed, that the words he delivered were something close to this. "Don't cry, 8 Alex. You are still our champion. You play for us, not for the win." 8. For those who haven't encountered Filipino culture before, 8 is one of the most tender words in the language. It means older sister, and it is used as a term of respect and deep affection. It is the word you use for someone who is family, someone you look up to, someone you love. In the middle of a professional sporting arena, surrounded by the machinery of global sports broadcasting, corporate sponsorships, and world ranking points, a Filipino child called Alex Eala his older sister. He reminded her that to him, and to millions like him, she is not a ranking number. She is not a scoreline. She is family. And you do not abandon family when they are struggling. You run onto the court for them. That is what broke her open. And that, the sports psychologists and commentators are now arguing loudly across the internet, might be exactly what she needed. The reaction across the tennis world in the hours since this footage emerged has been unlike anything we have seen for a purely emotional, non-championship moment in recent memory. The clip has accumulated millions of views on TikTok and has been trending on Twitter since the early hours of this morning. It has been shared by fan accounts, by news organizations, by sports journalists, and by celebrities with no particular connection to tennis who simply saw it on their timeline and could not scroll past it. The hashtag #LabanAlex, which means Fight Alex in Filipino, is trending globally. Not just in Asia. Globally. Fans from countries with no particular historical interest in Philippine tennis are tweeting it because they saw the video and felt something. Teresa Valentova, the actual victor of the match, who played a tactically magnificent game and thoroughly earned her first-round win, has been almost entirely swallowed by the bigger narrative. To her enormous credit, Valentova responded with absolute class. New footage from a secondary camera angle shows Valentova at the net, watching the scene unfold on the bench. She did not complain to the umpire about the delay to the post-match proceedings. She did not display any frustration. She stood back, watched, and began to applaud quietly. That is what genuine sportsmanship looks like, and Valentova deserves credit for it, even if the algorithm has temporarily buried her performance under an avalanche of emotional content. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because this is Champions Tennisitics, and we do not look away from the uncomfortable questions. The security breach at the Qatar Open is a genuine scandal running alongside the heartwarming narrative. The fact that an 8-year-old child was able to break through the security perimeter of a WTA 1000 event and reach a player sitting on her bench midcourt is, depending on your perspective, either the most miraculous thing that could have happened or a catastrophic failure of event management. Tournament officials in Doha are reportedly in emergency meetings. The head of courtside security is understood to be under serious pressure to explain how the perimeter was compromised. An internal review has been launched, and while this particular incident ended in an embrace rather than anything dangerous, the outcome could just as easily have been something terrible if the child had been a different kind of intruder entirely. Expect to see significantly reinforced security protocols for the remainder of the Qatar Open tournament. Higher barriers, additional personnel positioned along the front rows, and stricter monitoring of the perimeter are all being discussed. The WTA itself will almost certainly issue a statement in the coming hours, though the tone of that statement is going to require some delicate handling given that the security failure in question produced one of the most talked about moments in recent tennis history. How do you find a tournament for a breach that accidentally created magic? But the central question that the sports world is now wrestling with goes deeper than security logistics. It goes to the heart of what is happening with Alexandra Eala. Is she facing burnout? Is this the moment where the gap between the extraordinary talent she possesses and the extraordinary demands being placed on that talent finally caught up with her? The pattern is not new. The tennis tour has a long and melancholy history of brilliant young players who lit up the sport and then crumpled under the weight of expectation before they ever reached their ceiling. Emma Raducanu's story is the one everyone mentions first. The magnificent, seemingly impossible U.S. Open triumph in 2021, and then the long, painful, public struggle to recapture that form while an entire nation watched and commentated and criticized. Naomi Osaka's story is another chapter of the same book. The generational talent, the mental health crisis, the withdrawal, the long road back, the public honesty about what carrying the weight of a nation's expectations actually does to a person. These are not cautionary tales about weakness. They are cautionary tales about what happens when superhuman pressure meets a very human person who has a limit just like everybody else. Eala is 20 years old. She has been a professional tennis player for several years, but she is 20 years old. She is the primary athletic symbol of a nation of over 100 million people. She receives messages of support and pressure in roughly equal measure from a fan base so passionate, it sometimes forgets that passion can itself become a burden. She has been running a schedule that would exhaust a veteran of 10 years on the tour. And she has been doing all of this with the additional psychological complexity of knowing that every match she plays, win or lose, carries implications not just for her ranking, but for the visibility and credibility of Philippine tennis on the global stage. The 6-1 second set was not a technical failure. It was a human being running out of fuel. And yet, here is the counterargument that sports psychologists have been making across social media since this morning, and it is worth taking seriously. The breakdown before the breakthrough is a well-documented phenomenon in high-performance sport. The body and mind can only suppress and compartmentalize stress for so long before the pressure finds its own release valve. When that release happens through genuine emotional catharsis rather than through the slow corrosion of performance, it can paradoxically create the conditions for a significant recovery. Roger Federer has wept on the biggest stages in tennis. Novak Djokovic has sat on a bench and allowed himself to be completely overwhelmed by emotion in front of millions of viewers. These moments did not mark the end of their greatness. In many cases, they marked the beginning of a new chapter. The emotional release, the permission to feel rather than perform feeling, recalibrated something internal and cleared the way for what came next. The boy with the letter may have done something for Eala that months of professional sports psychology might have struggled to achieve. He gave her permission, in the most public and unconditional way possible, to be human, to be imperfect, to be someone who hurts. He reminded her that the love of her fans is not conditional on the scoreline. He reached past every layer of professional armor and touched the place where the real person lives. And he made her cry in front of everybody, which is to say he made her free. The Eala camp has been notably silent on social media in the hours since the match. Her usual post-match Instagram story, the kind of brief, professional acknowledgement of a difficult result that athletes post within a few hours, has not materialized. Her Twitter account is quiet. This is unusual. The silence is being interpreted in multiple ways by different corners of the fan community, but the most sensible reading is that something significant is being processed, and it is being processed privately, which is entirely her right. Sources close to the coaching team report that lengthy discussions have been taking place in the players' lounge area, with her technical staff and fitness team both present. There are credible whispers that a decision about her doubles participation may be forthcoming, with the option of withdrawal being considered in the interest of mental recovery. The jersey this boy was wearing, too large, proudly worn, bearing Eala's image, was almost certainly a treasured possession. The letter, the crumpled, carefully folded letter delivered by hand, because throwing it from the stands was not close enough, was probably crafted over days. Children don't carry letters they wrote in 5 minutes. They carry the ones they thought about and worried about and rewrote until they felt exactly right. Whatever the full contents of that letter turn out to be, it was clearly written by someone who needed her to know something important. The demand from the global tennis community for a formal reunion between Eala and the boy is building rapidly and may be impossible to ignore. Fan petitions have already been drafted. Multiple Filipino media organizations are reportedly seeking to locate the family for interviews. The argument being made loudly is that the story deserves a proper resolution. Alex meeting the boy in a calm, dignified setting, reading the letter properly, signing the jersey, and having the conversation that the chaos of a center court security incident did not allow. It would be, as one prominent tennis journalist put it on Twitter, the most human moment the sport has produced in years, and it deserves to be honored rather than left as a blurry, dramatic viral clip. Looking at the broader picture of what this moment means for Eala's season and career trajectory, the narrative possibilities are genuinely fascinating. Every great athletic story needs its moment of crisis, its point of maximum darkness before the light comes back. The careers that inspire generations are almost never the smooth, unbroken ascent from junior prodigy to Grand Slam champion. They are the stories with the fall embedded inside them, the moment where everything broke down and the champion had to decide whether to get back up. Eala has now had her crisis moment in the most public, most witnessed, most emotionally resonant way possible. The entire world has seen her at her lowest point. The world has also seen her held by a child who believed in her unconditionally at that lowest point. The story practically writes itself from here, and it is a story about resilience. Whether she takes a short break from the tour to rest and recover, or whether she gets back onto a court in the next available tournament determined to channel this experience into fuel, the Alex Eala of the next few months will be operating with something she didn't have before. She now knows, in the most visceral, embodied way possible, exactly what she means to people. Not in the abstract, not as a statistic about national pride, but in the specific, physical reality of a small boy's arms around her while she cried. That knowledge, properly integrated, is not a distraction. It is armor. We will be monitoring this story as it develops every hour. The moment we have confirmed news of a statement from Eala or her team, news on the WTA's official response to the security breach, confirmed details about the identity of the boy, or any update on her participation in the remainder of the tournament, you will hear it here first on Champions Tennisitics. We are already tracking multiple sources, and the next 24 hours are likely to bring significant developments in at least 2 of those threads. And now I am turning it over to you, the Champions Tennisitics community, because this story belongs to all of us, and I genuinely want to know what you think. What do you believe the boy whispered to Alex Eala in that moment? What do you think was in the letter he had been holding so carefully? And the big question, should Alex take a break from the tour right now to protect her mental health and come back stronger? Or should she get back on the court as quickly as possible and use this moment as the fire that fuels the rest of her season? Get into the comments and tell me your thoughts. I read every single comment. Every single one. This community has some of the best tennis minds and the biggest hearts I have ever seen in a YouTube comment section, and I mean that sincerely. If this story moved you, if it gave you chills, if it reminded you why sport is about so much more than points and rankings and prize money, then please show this channel some love. Hit that like button because it genuinely helps more people find this story and join this conversation. Subscribe if you are not already part of the Champions Tennisitics family, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a breaking story like this one. We are Champions Tennisitics. We do not just report the news. We feel it, we live it, and we share it with every one of you. Until the next story breaks, keep your eye on the ball, keep your heart in the game, and remember, sometimes the most powerful moment in sport has nothing to do with the score. Peace.